Greetings, one and all, of the most cursed, most cringiest corner of the internet. A YouTube channel content creator actively alienating everyone in both the analog and digital world. Well, welcome and good evening, wonderful dice of all alignments. I'm Lunar D8. Allow me to introduce you. This is Major Takano. Major, this is Dr. Kiyosuke Irie. Hello, I'm Irie. Irie seemed extremely nervous at our first meeting. He probably thought I was in charge of some suspicious organization. Hee hee. Please relax. Relax. Call me Takano. Thank you. Thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it. Please have a seat. A model, lower middle class citizen was a good way to describe Kiyosuke's Irie's demeanor. One could also say he was the stereotypical type of person to get conveniently discarded after those crafty elders used their seniority to constantly pick on him. He certainly doesn't seem as cunning as I am, but that doesn't mean he isn't ambitious. Like me, he's a young person who dreams of accomplishing something great and leaving his name upon generations to come. While he acts humble in person like this, his articles were actually progressive as well as aggressive. The gap between the two was quite intense. I have read the data concerning Hinamizawa's syndrome. What did you think? Well, it's really quite the shock. It's very possible that this is something that steps onto the dark side of today's medicine, but I can hardly control my intellectual excitement and knowing it's a mystery that has yet to be solved. Hearing that made me chuckle. Irie is more than interested in Hinamizawa syndrome, which is good enough for me. She had been through the ringer for far too many people to reach this day, so her honed intuition could tell. She would get along well with this man. Even if he isn't useful to me, he won't cause any problems. For both me and my sponsor, he's the best person for the job. I was shocked too. To imagine a man of your experience and knowledge is just wasting away in the medical office without any responsibilities or work to accomplish. I have to say that was a grave loss to the medical field. Ha ha ha. Irie laughed. He probably thought I didn't know, but I had received detailed documents on him, so I knew why he was exiled from the limelight despite his rare talent and achievements. He displayed extraordinary skill working on a neurosurgery expert, and everyone expected a bright future from him. But he was kicked out due to an ethical controversy. Irie's pet theory was that the antisocial behavior of individuals could be explained by brain disorders. He believed that no one in this world is born a villain, and that they were all just poor patients in need of treatment. He proposed that they were all proper and normal when born, yet as they matured, I would go with Genesis, though I guess I know some people pronounce it Genesis, but psychogenesis and various exogenous factors caused brain disorders that made them into villains. Therefore, what those evil people need isn't punishment, it is treatment. And if their diseases are treated, they will become good citizens again. That manner of thinking actually fell in line with the Confucian belief of innate human goodness. According to this theory, humans are born with the capacity for altruism toward their kind, and it is only afterward that they learn and acquire cruelty. Irie believed that acquisition was the result of brain disorders. The human brain creates human thoughts. Therefore, if one becomes emotionally ill, that means their brain is ill. So if their brain gets treatment, they will recover emotionally too. That field was called psychosurgery. It's fallen out of practice in the current Heisei era, but the surgical techniques were applauded until mid-Showa, especially since it produced spectacular results on a chronic mental patient that was said to be incurable. The man who invented it even won a Nobel Prize. That was how revolutionary it was. Humans think. That's why they become ill. Everyone knows that's why those who overthink matters are prone to mental illness. When the organ that thinks and debates grows ill, humans deviate from social behavior. That part is called the frontal lobe. Put simply, psychosurgery is surgery performed to cut the frontal lobe. I'll say this. I agree with the first half of the idea. I disagree with this type of execution of it. Like, grantedly, no matter what, there are some people that are just innately bad. And while there are chemical factors and there could be issues of both software and hardware when it comes to the brain, actual damage to the brain, or chemical changes or genetic factors in the body that would affect the brain or other organs affecting the brain, also environment, trauma, and of course personal choice. That being said, I do agree therapy and trying to treat mental illness would be effective at least for 70% of people that would be considered bad people. And again, you're not trying to brainwash somebody. You're trying to undo whatever it is that has caused them pain and help them to see things in a new way, but in a way that is voluntary, consensual, well-informed, non-invasive, and as little painful as possible. Though what we're describing here as an actual physical surgery sounds a lot very similar to the concept of lobotomies. And while I do understand there are some people that require medications for certain illnesses, I think it is better to keep the medications you give a human to the minimum. But of course there are some situations where it is required. But again, should be under the care of a doctor and kept to a minimum and only used when necessary and kept to low dosages that are able to work. And in the end, I think while medicine and drugs could be used by doctors to assist patients, I don't agree with the idea of keeping someone drugged up or drugging them against their will or, just relying entirely on that and ignoring, the psychological aspect of it. That being said, I do feel that there is no circumstance in which lobotomy is okay. I feel that a lobotomy on a person is actually worse and more evil and more malevolent than murder itself. I feel things like murder, lobotomy, and torture are downright evil and should never, ever exist. This kind of surgery doesn't require removing the whole epicranium. A small hole is drilled through the cranium, and a special scalpel is inserted down to cut it. It's not a major surgery, just a technique for quickly cutting the precious frontal lobe. Indeed, it was revolutionary in its simplicity. Again, I agree with the idea of relying on therapy and trying to treat things through psychology and psychiatry, as well as well-informed consent and non-invasive means, and minimal use of drugs. But I don't think anyone should ever be drugged out of their mind. And I certainly don't think, you should ever be cutting or damaging the human brain. In general, I largely oppose the idea of human beings damaging their own bodies in terms of anything. I mean, obviously, There's some exceptions, like cancer, or say if you're like one of those monks who's like punching a bunch of like a bucket of beans to try to, make your hands better for punching. I mean, I guess that's okay. You'll be able to count, but also at the same time, you develop arthritis a lot faster in life. And again, everyone's body is their own, but at the same time, again, it's things like consent and anything that would be causing anything approaching bodily mutilation. Because at that point, even with consent, especially if you're dealing with people with mental illness, well then there's a very big ethical questions about that. But I certainly feel that there is no circumstance in which lobotomy is okay. I feel like that is worse than murder. I do feel murder, torture, and lobotomy is unacceptable. All the severely ill mental patients miraculously recovered, so the technique spread around the world quickly. Those with obstinate and chronic mental illnesses, the severely ill trapped in deep inescapable depression. Like I said, I do have my own proclivities when it comes to these ideas, but I'm sure all of you do as well. All of those could be saved by this technique. Throughout history, humans have come up with many different religions and magic tricks to heal emotional injuries. So needless to say, the idea of being able to treat them with a surgical technique was truly revolutionary. Irie admired psychosurgery and pushed forward in the field of surgical techniques to treat human souls. However, from the modern human rights standpoint, severing a portion of the human brain simply because someone is emotionally disturbed is absolutely out of the question, and I do agree with that as well. Heck, I feel there's various articles in terms of human rights that I think are very important. There's things like the Geneva Convention. There's things like the American Constitution. People gradually started to think differently and said that psychosurgery was inhumane. The frontal lobe controls how people think, but it is also part of what that makes human act human. There were quite a few cases where that cut caused drastic irreversible changes in the patient. A baseless happiness born from lack of thought, a change in personality, a loss of interest in everything. Yes, like I said, I feel like you're basically destroying part of what makes the person a person. Now that being said, obviously, if you could help with certain mental illnesses, that's good, but I feel like a lot of those mental illnesses are based in other things. I feel like this is just impatience on the part of the doctor. I feel like these conditions could be helped with more patience, and I know, like I said, everyone's different, there's different situations. I'm mainly just my own moral standpoint. Major mood swings due to a lack of control over one's emotions. Some even lost part of their memories. Of course, some didn't even survive the surgery. As the Showa era approached its 40th year, use of psychosurgery declined. Also due to the development of psychotropic medicine, the surgery was hardly performed anymore anyway. Yet some people still believed in the idea and continued to perform the surgery and gather clinical data. They wanted people to recognize the value of the technique once again. Some of these surgeries were performed without consent. That's a big issue. One theory is that in Japan alone, there were thousands of people who woke up from general anesthesia, only to find that part of their brain had been removed. Today, to perform such a surgery without a patient's consent is considered totally unethical. I agree. But it was different at the time. For one thing, the idea that doctors required prior patient consent was proliferated in the modern high-C era. I feel like that should have been a thing that always. Heck, Hippocratic Oath also is very important. I feel like it should be an important thing, like part of the Like, I don't remember all of it. There was more to it. It was actually like a paragraph of stuff. But it was... of course, the part everyone's familiar with, it boils down to is, do no harm. To have your patient's well-being in mind and to avoid causing any unnecessary damage. Therefore, people at the time didn't think it was big of an issue. It was only later that people started to argue that it was inhumane. Finally, a decision was reached, and the curtain was closed with that rejection of the psychosurgery. Later, the Japanese Society of Psychology and Neurology passed the resolution to end psychosurgery. After that, psychosurgery was banned throughout Japan and made a forbidden subject of Japanese medicine. Irie was the leading person in the field of psychosurgery. He continued to advocate its effectiveness and results. Therefore, he was treated as a war criminal who practiced inhumane medicine, and he was exiled from the public eye. However, that doesn't mean he changed his beliefs. He still believes that immoral behavior is caused by brain disorders, and the secret of treating them is in fact hidden in the brain. I do agree with that. Like I said, when it comes to certain issues, when it comes to disorders such as that, there could be either physical damage to the brain, there could be a chemical imbalance, there could be influence from outside chemicals, there could be influence from an outside factor that is unknown at the moment. There could be influence from damage to other organs, such as the liver, because several of the organs in the human body also affect hormones and neurotransmitters. Beyond that, there's also the issue of the environment one grows up in, issues of trauma, as well as personal choice. Heck, one could even throw in how well is the person sleeping, how are they in terms of sociability, isolation, affection, love, boredom. Obviously, it's a whole mix of things. I feel like it would be a very complicated thing, but I feel there is a lot to it. And of course, no matter what, there is a large degree of choice, too. So the existence of Hinamizawa syndrome, caused by parasites living in the brain that control human emotions, actually affirms his theory. If it's alright with you, I would love to accept this position. Of course, given Irie's history, he would never turn down this offer. Despite his mild-mannered appearance, Irie was possessed of a mighty ambition. There was no way he didn't desire a chance to complete research that would prove himself to the medical society that ostracized him. I'm handing him that chance on a silver platter. Thank you very much. I knew you'd accept. We are very lucky to have an expert like you. You'll be a great help. But are you okay with me being the director? Wouldn't it be better for you to hold that position, Takano-san? I'm just a simple doctor. Being in charge of other people is... Don't worry. I'll give you my full support. Our sponsor wanted to pick a civilian. Besides, wouldn't you like to be called Director Irie? Hee. Oh, well. But, Irie laughed to hide his embarrassment. We're building a research center in Hinamizawa. Publicly, it will be a clinic. So if your consent, Dr. Irie, we'd like to call it the Irie Clinic. The lord of my own castle. That's more than I deserve. The lord of my own castle. You'll also be placed under the SDF, so you'll be registered as a medical officer with them. Since you'll be my superior, you'll be a lieutenant colonel. Lieutenant Colonel Irie, how does that sound to you? I'm not a military man. I'd rather refrain from being called Lieutenant Colonel. Director is already a frightening title, as is. I will say this. I am a person who does have an interest in quite a bit of scientific things, but of course was never one who pursued such fields. I will say this. At one point I considered the idea of doctors and stuff, but honestly I felt too scared of the idea that if I'm trying to help somebody, that if I fuck up, I would accidentally hurt somebody. So, that being said, I would also be of the mindset that director, yay, but I would not want to be called by any sort of military rank. Simply put, I am not a military person, nor do I ever desire to, be such. It's just not something that's within my discipline or personality. It's just very anathema to who I am as a person. It's just who I am. Oh my, he's getting a chance to research brain parasites, plus being given the title of director of a new clinic as camouflage. Plus it comes with staff and funding. He'll even have support from the Defense Agency and the Ministry of Health and Welfare, as well as a research lab with state-of-the-art equipment. No wonder he's laughing so excitedly. However, there's some risks too. Since he'll be involved with the secret research, he has an obligation to keep it a secret. Also, he is going to an area plagued by a mysterious and bizarre disease. There's no guarantee he won't contract it himself, but Irie is too young to even think about those things. Aware of all the risks, he quickly signed the contract with the ambition to have people recognize his talent once again. When I saw him sign the contract, I finally relaxed. I knew he would agree to join us, but at the same time I was afraid of the chance that he'd refuse. Selecting a director proved more difficult than expected, and the only candidate Takano paired well with was Irie. So if Irie refused to take the position, then frankly she'd be placed in an even worse situation. Now that Irie had agreed to take the position, research in Hinamizawa syndrome can finally begin. The research center, or rather the Irie Clinic, will be completed next spring. The Ministry of Health and Welfare and the Defense Agency will send their best equipment and staff, plus an abundant supply of funds. And then finally our research will begin in earnest. Everything is going well, of course it is. I've put so much effort into making sure things went smoothly up to this point. Okay, that's it. Congratulations, Dr. Irie. Director Irie. Major. The contract has been signed. Thank you. I look forward to working with you, Director Irie. I look forward to working with you too. Takano-san, I hope we can get along. I'll be devoting my best efforts to this. No, thank you. Let's both give our best. Now the position of director has been filled, everything is set. Wahaha, that's great, just great. Congratulations, Takano-san. No, Major Takano, isn't it? Wahaha, this was all possible thanks to your assistance. I must give my thanks to all of you. Oh, don't mention it. But we should save our congratulations until you finish your research, huh? You're only at the starting line, aren't you? Exactly. I'll be devoting my every waking moment to this research. We can hardly wait to see the result of what Dr. Takano couldn't finish. Wahaha! Well now, Sensei. Let's not talk about business today. Let's have a toast to congratulate Takano-san and the Irie Institute. Hello everyone. I'm Nagata from the Ministry of Health and Welfare. I would like to say a few things before the toast. Takano-san, make sure he works hard, okay? His research center will be supporting the Institute. If you need any technical support, just call him. Make him work hard? No, I have to thank you for your support. I'm Takano. Pleased to meet you. Takano-san, let me introduce you to these gentlemen. Meet Tomataki-kun and Okonoki-kun from the Self-Defense Force. They're your backup from the SDF. I'll let them introduce themselves. Nice to meet you. I'm Tomataki. I've been commanded to serve as auditor of this project. I look forward to working with you. The funding for our research is largely coming from the SDF. It's only natural for the SDF to assign a watchdog to make sure reasonable research is taking place. However, someone in a position like that should be my opponent. Why was someone in that position invited to this private party? Does that mean this auditor is on my side too? Seeing that through groundwork, I couldn't help but feel the strength of having a sponsor all over again. I won't be staying in Hinamizuwa. I'll only come by routinely to check on the progress of the research. Oh, that's too bad. Hinamizawa's a beautiful place with clean air. Please come visit us anytime outside of work too. Thank you. I guess I will. If he really is an auditor, I should maintain a good relationship with this man. He'll hold the key to all future adjustments of our funding so long as we continue drawing it from the SDF. I'm Okonogi. Nice to meet you. He's the commanding officer of the Mountain Dogs, one of our unconventional warfare units. They'll be stationed in Hinamizawa to provide you direct support, Major. Should I consider you my bodyguard, then? Their principal duty is guarding VIPs and preserving secrets. Think of them as your hands and feet and work them hard. Thank you. Tomataki seems to be an honest type for a military man, but this Okonogi person looks the complete opposite. His main job is to preserve secrets, but I bet he's also good with espionage tactics like counterintelligence and information control. Yes, that would explain his demeanor. Since the SDF is funding our research on Hinamizawa syndrome, of course this is considered a military operation. Therefore, this research has to be done in secret. That's why a unit like this is necessary. Besides, it's very reassuring to have someone capable of combat working under me. I should maintain a good relationship with him too. Okay, enough introductions. Come on, Tomataki-kun, you can relax too. Let's put aside our ranks today and have a toast. While this is supposed to celebrate the establishment of the Irie Institute, Irie himself isn't here, but that is his job after all. Irie is simply a puppet to fill his seat. Of course, I expect him to help me a little with his expertise, but he's ultimately an outsider. This was supposed to be a gathering where I would show my appreciation to those who helped me establish the Irie Institute, but it has turned into them thanking me for all my efforts. I'm always the one to pour alcohol for others, but today people are pouring alcohol in my glass. The new participants were trying to make me happy, and all the top people talked to me casually. They all praised my hard work and my efforts. My research is now recognized by many institutions, and I'm ready to spread my wings open wide. And all the people who are expecting some returns once the research accomplishes something are trying to curry favor with me. But right now, I'm just very grateful regardless of their motives. Let's have a toast to wish the best of luck to Mio Takano-kun and also the new Irie Institute. Araya Sun say, please lead the toast. It's like a dream, I know. This is just the beginning and I shouldn't be satisfied with this alone. But just for today, I can forget about everything else and enjoy this celebration. I'm not a heavy drinker, but the drinks taste good tonight. And the more I drink, the happier I get. Ah, this is wonderful. To be called Major by Tomataki and the others is wonderful too. That's the rank my grandfather had during the war. That means I finally caught up with my grandfather. This is only the beginning. From here on, I intend to reach what my grandfather couldn't. This is the best night of my life. I ended up leaving to fix my makeup. I'm filled with elation. I need to feel fresh air to calm myself down. My heart is about to explode because I'm so happy. The gathering is taking place a little distance away from the main building. The restroom is in the main building, so I need to walk across the hallway. A beautiful, well-maintained Japanese garden is visible from the hallway. It's raining. I usually don't like rain, but I don't mind it at all today. I feel like even the raindrops are congratulating me. The cool air feels pleasant on my hot skin. It took me a moment to notice how unsteady my footsteps had become. Maybe I drank a little too much. It isn't like me to drink more than I can handle. Although this is a party, I don't want to embarrass myself, so I decided to cool off a little by looking at the beautiful Japanese garden. I found an elegant chair set on a red carpet nearby and sat down on it. Since I was with the associates until now, I was forced to constantly be on my guard against embarrassing myself. But now that I was alone, I could let go and truly relax. When I look up to the sky, I realize it's still raining hard, but in the distance, the horizon is a little lighter. Maybe it won't be raining for much longer. Well, that's normal. Rain stops eventually. No matter how cold it is or how hard it is raining, rain stops eventually. I saw a pair of sandals and an umbrella, almost inviting me, so I took them into the garden. The tasteless laughter coming from the party sounds far away. I tilted the umbrella and looked up to the sky. I felt the raindrops hit my face, and gazed up at the sky for a while, forgetting all about my hair getting wet. I thought the rain would cool down my boiling heart, but as my body got cold, I started to feel miserable. My bare feet were all swollen, and the throbbing pain I felt made them twice their normal size. The gravel road continued forever. I didn't even know what direction I was headed in anymore. I could no longer hear my pursuer. I had probably lost him by running through the woods like mad. My body was covered in scratches. I finally started to feel the pain from that. I felt both cold and hungry. There was no place nearby to take shelter from the rain. I was just on a little path in the woods. My worst fear was that I could end up heading back toward the orphanage. After bolting and losing my sense of direction, I had crushed that man's finger. I didn't think I bit it off, but I was sure it would leave a scar. Taking that into consideration, it was very clear to me what kind of torture awaited me back at the orphanage. Therefore, I'd have to reach the house of love and mercy. If only it had been daytime, then I could easily have found the right way to go. However, with this rain, there was nothing I could see. But I couldn't stop. I had to keep walking until I reached something. I wondered if Eriko and the others had escaped safely. I didn't know how many people came after us, but at least one came after me. In other words, it meant they had a better chance. Did they reach the house of love and mercy? Were they drying themselves with soft towels? And if they still remembered me, would they save a towel for me too? I felt so cold. I wanted to find shelter and sit down, but there was nothing of the sort. I saw a tree that looked like I could take shelter under it, but the branches and leaves were dripping with water. It was then that I realized the sky was gradually getting darker. Would this day end in rain? There were no street lights where I was. Soon enough it would be totally dark. Then I wouldn't be able to walk any further. I just wanted to sit down, even if it was raining. But if I did sit down, I probably wouldn't be able to stand up again. So I endured. If I hadn't escaped with Eriko and the others, I wouldn't have had to go through such misery. But compared to what I had to go through at the orphanage, this was nothing. Thinking about that was the only way to make myself move. But when I thought about that, it's true that this freezing cold rain was far better than my life at the orphanage. But that was only when compared to the life at the orphanage. Was it better than the normal lives of normal kids my age? I didn't even need to think about that. When my parents were alive, although we weren't rich, we led a normal life. The gentle smiles and forgivable selfishness. The sound of my mother cooking breakfast in the morning. The sound of a newspaper being folded. Precious memories like that. I didn't need anything else. I had plenty of friends. I had fun at school. I didn't like my teacher, but I liked studying. I had everything I needed. That was enough for me. I never complained. I never did anything bad. So why was this happening to me? Everything went downhill after that train accident. The die of fate kept rolling a 1. The die never showed its good side to me. If the accident was my fault, then I could have accepted it. But it wasn't. I wasn't even there. I waited for my parents at home. I liked going to the mall with them. We always had a meal at the restaurant in the mall. I always told them to let me know if they were going to the mall, but on that day they went without me, while I went to my friend's house to play. My friend wasn't in, so I went back home. I didn't see anyone at home, and found a note said that they were going to the mall. I regretted going to my friend's house. I waited at home. They didn't come home. They were still gone by dinner time. I was getting hungry and got angry with my parents for leaving me. I thought they were having dinner at the mall restaurant without me. If I hadn't gone to my friend's house, I would be eating dinner at the restaurant too. I loved the little flags that came with the kids' meal. I was collecting those flags. Yes, I was. I was trying to collect 20 of them, thinking that once I collected 20, something wonderful would happen. But I couldn't collect 20 of them. I only needed one more. If I had one more, maybe the accident wouldn't have happened. A very sad memory of a flag from a kid's meal. I kept waiting for my parents to come home from the mall. I was hungry, so I started to eat some fried, dried fish. If I ate too much, my mother would find out, so I was careful not to gorge myself. Then the phone rang. I assumed it was from my parents. I answered the phone in an angry manner, but it wasn't them at all. What happened to the house? We had rented it, so maybe someone else had already moved in. What happened to my room? What about my desk? And all the flags that were in the right middle drawer? If it wasn't my house anymore, then where was I supposed to go? Even if it remained my house, my parents wouldn't be there to welcome me or protect me. Just because I didn't have my parents to protect me, the whole world became so cruel. How could anyone take me away from the house I was used to living in just because my parents were gone? Why didn't they just leave me alone? They asked me many things, they tried to confirm many things, but how could I have understood any of the forms they gave me? I was asked a yes or no question. I had no choice but to answer yes, and before I knew I ended up at the orphanage. It was beyond heartless. I didn't do anything wrong. I was just a little girl. I had to sign so many papers, but why this? The warm and gentle world ended suddenly without advance notice, and I was thrown into the cruel, merciless world alone. Was this the real world? Did I have any allies at all? Just because my parents died and I didn't have any relatives, the world had become so sad. When is the die going to come up with a 6 instead of a 1 to make up for the continuous series of the latter? Oh, tears were pouring down my cheeks. The salty taste further saddened and irritated me. I couldn't do anything but cry, but no matter how hard I cried or pitied myself, the cold rain wouldn't warm my body or save me. I didn't even know where I was or in which direction I should go. Eriko showed me the map to the House of Love and the Mercy when we were planning our escape, but we only learned the shortest route. I was completely lost. But strangely, after I finished crying, I felt a groundless strength within myself. I once learned that tears wash away particles in the eyes, but there is a different purpose to them, too. Tears also wash away what's left in the heart. I clenched my fists and forced my feet to move. I headed in the direction that I believed to be the correct on the gravel road. The rain was still pouring, and it was getting darker and darker. I roared at the sky amidst the rain, but sadness was turning into anger. You stupid God, why? What have I done to deserve this? What did I do? I didn't do anything. I was just living a normal life, that's all. So why this? My daddy told me there was good things and bad things in life, but neither lasts forever. That means this misery won't last that long either, right? I won't be all alone in this miserable place forever, right? Isn't that right? As I looked up, I felt the raindrops hit my face. But there is no God. I knew that in my heart. but such disbelief wouldn't save me. If I believed he was there, I should have been saved. No, I needed him to be there. Was he going to answer me? I heard thunder. Then I realized he was there. He was there and he was listening to me. In his eyes, everyone's supposed to be equal. He was listening to me. I've gone through enough. More than enough. If I was too happy before, then I could take this misery. But I wasn't. I was living a normal life. If you ask me if I was happy then, sure, I was. But this is what I get in return. That's not fair at all. I heard thunder again. He was listening. I continued. If this fate of mine was your mistake, then let me be free. Please end my misery and let me be happy again. But if this is in fact my fate, and I'm supposed to live this way until the end, then I don't want it. Kill me. Kill me now with your lightning. Just finish me off now. Come on. Kill me ruthlessly right here and now. I heard thunder again. It was loud enough to make me shiver. Normally I would just hide in the house and wait until the thunder went away, but on that day I wasn't afraid. Come on. Kill me. Mio Tanashi is right here. Miyoko Tanashi is right here. Just like you killed my parents, take my life too. The heavens replied to my provocation. The heavens took aim at me, a lowly human who dared to sling constant insolent insults at them. That was my wish. I opened my arms. He's God, so he wouldn't miss me. However, I guess even God makes mistakes. Sometimes. Although he's supposed to be fair, he had been unfair with me. Come on, kill me. Take me to heaven. But if you fail to kill me, then try turning my destiny around. A flash from heaven. I thought I smelled something burning just before it hit. The sheer force knocked me to the ground. It was a strange experience. It was something that had just happened, but it already felt like it happened many years ago. I had no idea how long I was down for. I smelled something odd. The bad stench woke me up. When I looked, I saw that huge tree behind me had been split open. Its leaves were smoldering. I looked up and saw sparks in the darkness. I couldn't understand what just happened, and I just stood there. The thunderbolt had struck. It didn't strike me, it struck the tree behind me. I didn't get to die. He was telling me to keep walking in the woods in the cold rain. I won my bet with God. I bet my life against the lightning and thunder. It could have killed me instantly, but he missed, so he had to fix my life. I looked up at the sky, laughing and bragging that I was still alive. I heard thunder again. It was acknowledging its loss. Come on, God. Save me. I won the bet. So save me from this misery. I stood there. I waited for God to do something while the rain poured down on me, but he didn't answer me again. I couldn't hear the thunder anymore. Again, I felt the warm tears pour down my cheeks. What was I thinking? If there was a God in heaven, he wouldn't have let anything like this happen to me. My miserable life was proof of God's non-existence. The darkness was about to swallow me utterly. Would I have to sleep out here? God must have wanted me to die slowly in this cold rain instead of granting me an instant death by lightning. I wish the sun would go away. I wish the sun would never rise. I wish that as the woods had grown completely dark, my existence would be hidden by that darkness. I wish that I could just disappear. Had it been an eternity, or was it a matter of seconds? I couldn't even tell the time in such darkness. It was then that I saw something. It was a light. I noticed it only because the woods were so dark. But was it really there? Had it been there this whole time? I felt like the light was inviting me towards it. It was a fluorescent light. I didn't normally like fluorescent lights because I always thought they looked cold, but I didn't feel coldness from that white light. I made myself believe that the light was a guide sent by God. I had to believe, otherwise I wouldn't be saved. The light reflected in a puddle. It wasn't a muddy puddle. It was a puddle on asphalt. I had made it out of the woods and was on a paved road. The light was a street light. Being on a paved road didn't really resolve anything. It was just a country road. It was a road that went through the woods, so there were no houses, no shops, and not even a single car going by. There weren't too many street lights on the road, so it was still very dark. My feet touched the asphalt. It felt so different from the gravel I had been walking on earlier. It felt almost merciful. My feet had grown used to walking on the gravel, but after feeling the softness of the asphalt, I never wanted to go back to the former again. I could only choose between heading left or heading right. I was grateful to God for leading me to this asphalt road, but I wish that He had given me a little more guidance. Such a little bit of luck couldn't make up for all the unhappiness I'd gone through. Just that was when I sensed its guidance. I saw another light in the distance. It was only after on the right side. I headed towards it, and when I got there I understood what it was. I was amazed to find it there. A telephone booth. Who would actually make a call in the middle of nowhere? A telephone booth in the countryside was rather unusual. There were plenty of red public phones all over, but I had always thought the telephone booths only existed in big cities. It almost looked as though the telephone booth had been put there as punishment for doing something bad. When I thought that, I felt bad for the lonely telephone booth. It reminded me of myself. Even if I went inside the telephone booth, what could I even do there anyway? I already knew the answer to that question, but no matter what, I just had to get in there. The door squeaked as I opened it. There were lots of bugs flittering around because of the light. I usually hated bugs, but in that moment I felt like that they were my friends, sheltering from the rain like me. There was no heater, but it was still very warm inside the booth. It sheltered me from the cold rain. Soon enough I crumbled to the floor. The warmth from the fluorescent light embraced me gently, and I felt like it was telling me that it was okay to cry. But I had no more tears left because I cried them all when the lightning struck. Aching scratches covered my body. My calves were in pain too. Everything hurt everywhere, and I didn't want to get up ever again. I wish I could fall asleep. But if I did that, the staff in the orphanage might find me. The windows on the booth were high up, so if I sat down I wouldn't be visible from the outside, but as it was the only shelter house there I would, the staff would be sure to check it. That was why I couldn't stay there for long. However, telephone booths from back then were completely made of glass. So it was possible to hide inside one. My exhausted spirit understood that I had to move. But I just couldn't make myself. Maybe I was experiencing some kind of vision. I felt a strange calmness that I'd never experienced before. I didn't feel that I was myself. I thought that maybe I was killed by that lightning. I assumed I was still Miyoko Tanashi, but maybe I wasn't her at all. I seriously considered those